Hello, respected viewers. I'm George from Ireland, so welcome back to my channel. And in this video, I'm going to be asking whether Boris Johnson ought to resign. Well, he is First Lord of the Treasury, and a scandal broke, that is to say, in May 2021, when we're in deepest lockdown, minutes after his own Conservative Party chairman, Oliver Dowden, had said on television that you can meet outside with one friend. That Boris Johnson attended a party to which 100 people had been invited by his own principal private secretary, which is a very senior civil servant. And they were told to bring your own booze. That's a direct quotation. So they met in the garden of Downing Street. Now, the invitation email said it would be socially distanced. I realise when you're out of doors, there's less risk of coronavirus being transmitted because it's just going up into the ether. Might be a little bit windy. And so when it's enclosed, when there's no airflow, that's worse. You'll be breathing in more infectious particles. But nevertheless, it was very much against the rules. Now, there's this Crown Lounge exception for 10 Downing Street, so again, legally he's probably in the clear. But morally, he certainly isn't. It's a public relations disaster. What does this do for their communications? When there were all sorts of heart-rending stories, there were people who were dying, they're terminally ill, they could see it happening for weeks, and their relatives weren't allowed to visit them, just speak on Skype or Zoom or something, and that. There were funerals of young people where only about 10 mourners could attend. People had to put off their weddings again and again. Babies were born, their close blood relatives couldn't even come to visit them. We couldn't have parties, we couldn't have sports matches, we couldn't have all sorts of things. Remembering back in May 2021, the vaccination was far less widely spread than it is these days. We had a different variant. It wasn't Omicron, which seems to be largely trifling. Anyway, this came to light. Why did it come to public knowledge just now? Presumably somebody had it in for him. Might not just be a grudge, might be a principled objection, think this is grossly unethical, this is the height of hypocrisy, the public has a right to know. I mean, Boris Johnson deserves to be shamed for the absolute charlatan that he is. So someone has revealed this to the press. I can't remember which media outlet published it first, and obviously it's been authenticated. So Boris Johnson, he dithered about whether he attended it or not, but now he has acknowledged that he did attend it. So there are people calling for him to resign, and as ill luck for Johnson would have it, today, Wednesday, is the day of Prime Minister's question time at 12 noon. That happens for half an hour. It used to be 2 sessions of 15 minutes, twice a week, Tuesday, Thursday. Blair amalgamated it into one of 30 minutes on Wednesday lunchtime. So it's the most well-attended debate in Parliament of the week. And there are questions for the opposition MPs, there's some questions for the government MPs, tend to be sycophantic ones from the Tory benches. But obviously the leader of the opposition, Sir Keir Starmer, he led the charge, and he was head of the Crown Prosecution Service, so he's a very seasoned barrister. Don't know why he's not a QC. But anyway, he launched some surgical strikes with his cross-examination of the Prime Minister. So Bojo was left squirming. He just had no decent answer. So Bojo has developed a very thick hide. He knew he was going to have to sit there for ritual humiliation for 30 minutes, and that's the price you've got to pay as Prime Minister, especially when you behave with such a cavalier disregard for rules and morality as he does on a daily basis. Various even Conservative MPs like William Bragg has said that Boris Johnson should tender his resignation and so on. A civil servant, Sue Gray, she has been tasked with writing a report into the Downing Street party. Now, has Bojo given this little brief to her because he reckons that she's a loyalist, she won't rock the boat, she'll produce something which will let him off the hook? A bit like when Lord Butler of Brockwell, former Cabinet Secretary, Master of University College, Oxford, my college, when he was given the duty by Tony Blair to publish some report into the use of intelligence about the Iraq War, and it said it was a collective failure. Now, that report could have demanded Blair's resignation, in which case he probably would have stood down as Prime Minister. But Blair thought, knowing Butler's personality, he's very much an establishment creature, and he won't do anything contentious. And now, as a civil servant, I would love to go down in history as the man who brought down a Prime Minister, but Butler wasn't like that. And maybe Sue Gray isn't either. They tend to be like that. These Mandarins, they speak Mandarin. So as a typical bureaucrat, she'll probably write something quite anodyne, and Bojo will just about get away with it. So Bojo, he then he's in a statement today, he said, yes, he went out and greeted Downing Street staff and blah, blah, blah. 100 invited, 40 turned up. But if it's a work event, you're not told to bring your own booze. It's 6 o'clock in the evening after work is over. It might have been a work social, but they weren't certainly actually working, even if occasionally a work issue came up in conversation. And 100 of them would have turned up. Everyone who was invited would have turned up. You're not invited to do work, you are mandated to do work. So anyway, quite a few Conservative MPs have complained. There's the 1922 committee, well, it's in its centenary, founded in October 1922, just when Conservative backbench MPs demanded that the coalition government be ended. They would no longer have David Lloyd George, a Liberal, as Prime Minister. Remember, Lloyd George's government was mostly Conservative, even though he was a Liberal himself, and fell over the Charnock crisis and various other issues. But if 54 Conservative MPs write a letter to the chairman of the 1922 committee, that will cause a leadership challenge. Now, you can only do this once per 12 months, so they don't want to go off with their gun half-cocked. They want to bring him down. And also for the Tory party, leaving Johnson wounded but still in office would be the worst outcome. You either want him to survive as Prime Minister with the backing of most of his MPs, or you want to take him down. Anything in between, it would be the worst outcome. He would just drag on, it would drag the party down. So the Scottish Conservative leader, Douglas Ross, has said that this is disgraceful and the Prime Minister ought to step down. He just can't be supported any longer. And so on. Sir Roger Gale. So some influential backbenchers have said that the cabinet was muted in support. So obviously Labour is loving it. They're revelling it. And to be fair to Labour, there have been no such scandals on their side. The leader of the loyal opposition, Sir Keir Starmer, he's had coronavirus before and he's always abided by the rules, so has every other Labour MP, so far as I know. The Scottish National Party's leader in Westminster, Ian Blackford, he has also savaged Johnson, but he brought it all on himself, and he has previous. It's pointed out that Allegra Stratton, who was a Prime Minister spokeswoman, she was forced to resign because in that mock press conference, she giggled about this Downing Street party that was held in December 2020, and she didn't even attend the party, and that wasn't even a real press conference. It was just a dry run for it. And so the odd thing is, the higher up you go, the lower down the sense of accountability goes. So someone at the absolute top is not carrying the can for what he's done. The buck stops here. So he's breaking his own rules flagrantly. He's often given these rambling press conferences. He's got muddled up about his own rules and things like that. But, okay, the Deputy Prime Minister, Dominic Raab, has spoken up for him, so has Sajid Javid. This is collective cabinet responsibility. If you're not willing to speak in defence of the Prime Minister, then you must leave the cabinet, or indeed you'll be sacked. So Rishi Sunak, luckily for him, has been unavailable for comment. So it really doesn't look good. Labour's 6 percentage points ahead in the opinion polls, and could get worse for the Conservatives. Admittedly, this mid-term, over 2 years since the last election. Okay, vaccination's gone fairly well. They seem to be easing off the coronavirus restrictions, which is quite welcome. Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland keeping quite strict, but England is not. But they will probably follow England's suit if the caseload goes down, if Omicron proves to be as unserious as it appears to be. Not that many deaths considering, even though it's highly infectious. The isolation period reduced to 5 days, the economy largely reopening. But there's some, you're going to have to be some swinging spending cuts, or else tax rises or more borrowing. Fiscally, it doesn't look rosy for 2021. April is going to be a painful month. T.S. Eliot said April is the cruelest month. That's budget month, and I don't think Rishi Sunak can pull a rabbit out of the hat. There's also going to be the local elections in May, first Thursday in May. So I think Bojo will manage to limp on till May. If there's a terrible showing in the May local elections for the Conservative Unionist Party, then Bojo might be pressurised to fall on his sword. But, he's been Prime Minister for, not even 3 years at this stage. So we're going through almost annual leadership contests in the Conservative and Unionist Party. But he's always so cavalier. He's always so slapdash. He plays fast and loose with the truth. He's economical with it, to say the least. It's his own deceit, his own guile, lack of gumption has got him into this situation. So he's really got only himself to blame for it. He is indeed author of his own misfortune. So that's it. It's a very unedifying spectacle. Well, thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Please donate with the greatest possible liberality to me on PayPal, georgecallahan79@gmail.com. That's GeorgeCallahan79@gmail.com. Toodaloo.